Alright guys, I tried to make this video yesterday, but I was in a hurry. I was running around. I had to go back to work. I just had too much going on and it didn't turn out very well. So I'm replacing it today with a new copy of it. I didn't promote the other one or stick it anywhere for anybody to see it. So it's water under the bridge. I want to talk about the most important thing I'm going to tell you about in this whole series, I feel. And that is this opportunity we have coming that's going to stare us in the face. Because we have a great opportunity coming at us in the next 10 years. And we need to be prepared for it. The enemy, thanks to circumstances and time, our enemies have been forced to make a mistake. At least our political enemies here in the United States. They weren't able to do what they're trying to do in a good enough time zone, in an adequate period of time. So they're not going to get very far before you and I are going to get a chance, and the whole world get a chance to stare into the abyss. We're going to get clear, easily understood samples of what's going to happen and what life's going to be like in the future. And that's going to give us a great chance to turn the tide. Now, I know right now, out here in the world, you have all these social justice warriors. They're flying around like the monkeys out of Wizard of Oz. They've already snatched up little Toto and who knows what they've done with him. And they're driving us towards the cliffs in order to ensure our doom. But it may not work. And what I want to do is I want to talk to you about two reasons why it may not work. Because we are going to get to see clear examples of the results of their policies before they can consolidate power and before we get pushed so far along that we really may reach a point of no return. And there's two things I want to talk about. I want to talk about the Islamic Empire, and I want to talk about demographic collapse. These two things are going to give us a clear picture in time, just in time to respond if we'll be ready for it. So first of all, as I've mentioned before, after defeating the Soviet Union, the Sunni and the Shias ended up having these kind of individual, these independent militias. They were able to funnel them through different terrorist groups. They could cross borders. They could plan attacks. They could get safe haven. They were basically the pointed end of the spear for the Islamic civilization. Well, they made a mistake when after 9/11, when the United States invaded Afghanistan and Iraq. They thought they could stand up and take us on the way they did the Soviet Union. But there's a difference between taking on some old Russian rusty tank backed by a helicopter that's only airworthy one day a week, than taking on the American forces. The Americans had brand new Abrahams. They had brand new Bradley fighting vehicles. When they figured out that the Humvee was susceptible to IEDs, they armored them. They have A-10s. Those things will fly almost no matter how much you shoot at them. And they'll fly day after day like that. It wasn't the same. And so they kind of lost their shirts in turn. The Shia first in Iraq and then the Sunnis next in Syria and ISIS. Now there is a problem there because a lot of those fighters on the Sunni side are actually still in prison in Syria. Then you can't let them go because they'll go right back, right? So for now though, the two militias that the Islamic Empire or civilization could draw on have been badly damaged and have suffered heavy casualties and are disorganized. We took out their leaders. We took out any central planning they might have done. So we've really discomforted them. On the other hand, they're going to regrow these things from a population that's growing compared to their enemy's population shrinking, and that's going to allow them to reconstitute themselves. They'll probably do so within the next 5 years. They'll get back most of what they lost. Probably not quite all by then, but they'll have continued chances to recruit. And the more successful they are with their attacks, the more chances they'll have to recruit. So in time, that's going to come back. And what that means is, probably sometime within the next 10 years, we're going to have another Islamic attack in Europe, at least one, that's going to be a lot more organized and a lot more brutal and a lot more effective, a lot like the attack they did at the concert, and the other areas near it a few years ago in France. So we're going to see how persistent and how effective the Muslim civilization can be at putting forces in the field in foreign territory. We're going to start to get the picture that this is not going to just go away. We're going to have to do something. And then we can respond to that. On the other hand, we are going to see in the Pacific, and I want to talk about three countries in particular. I want to talk about Japan, I want to talk about South Korea, and I want to talk about Taiwan. So I'm going to clump South Korea and Taiwan together because for them, demographic collapse means something a little different than it does for some of the other countries, because they are targets, at least indirectly, of China and its allies. Taiwan, more directly, is China actually wants to adopt them back in, turn them into a SAR, and make them part of communist China. South Korea is in danger because if China really decides to jump and go for this, China's one chance to tie down American forces before they can be transported from where they are, the bases they're on, to re-invading Taiwan and taking it back, is in the Korean Peninsula. So China is likely to force North Korea to accept the idea of allowing Chinese forces to pass through so they can get at the American forces in that case. That would be a hot mess for both of these countries. But their demographics are collapsing just like everybody else's. And what they're going to find is what they're really short of are people to hold guns. They're not going to have the body of young people to recruit from, to make their forces from. And so they're going to have to change their tactics. You're going to find 30, 40, maybe even 50-year-old men like me out in the field holding a gun, going through military drills. And we're going to get to see that on TV. That's one. But Japan is the one where we're really now seeing the impact. And what we're going to see is in the next few years, this thing's going to balloon beyond anything you can imagine. And I'll link put the link to this below. But there are actual articles talking about how in Japan, by 2040, up to almost 900 local villages and municipalities will not be viable. Many of them are just abandoned totally. And this abandonment has already started. There are villages that no longer exist in Japan, where the buildings are just being just grown over and run up with weeds. This is it's not going to be new, but it's going to be on such a massive scale that it won't be ignorable anymore. Right now, when you look around Japan, you have to kind of look hard to find these places that have been abandoned altogether. That won't be the case in the future. If it's going to be 900, that's going to be pretty present. But what's really going to make the difference is what happens in the cities, because what's happening right now are people are moving from the countryside into the cities, and they're feeding the city population, keeping it up and going up. They're going to run out of people in the countryside that move to the cities. And when that happens, then the prices and the values of these cities are going to change. The problem with real estate, ultimately, is that it's not really directly fungible. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. If you own land in a certain spot, or you build a building in a certain place, that's pretty much where those things stay, depending on the size and the nature of the construction. Individual houses get moved. I'm in Arizona, so we have London Bridge over in Lake Havasu, but it's not that big. It was made of stone with just mortar in between. You could take it apart, break the mortar off the blocks, bring it over, stack it back together, put mortar back in it. But it broke down into something that you could move. A house is small enough that you can jack it up. You can put a frame under it, a metal frame under it on a semi, and you can move that a few miles. A skyscraper isn't like that, and the land itself isn't like that. The land itself is where it's at, and you can go and you take a bulldozer and you can dig up the dirt, but you really own the location. When we say land, we mean the location, the spot, right? And that can't be moved. The spot's permanent. And so we're skyscrapers. Skyscrapers are permanent. You can't just take a skyscraper, toss it on the back of a couple of semis, and drag it around. Move it, say, from Oklahoma to Dallas, Oklahoma City to Dallas. That isn't going to work. Where it's at is where it's at. And when the owners of it lose value in that, there's not much they can do about it. And so you're going to look at a Japan that's really going to be on the brink. And they're going to be kind of panicking once they really see. Because right now they really don't see. Yeah, they've lost a million people from their peak in population. That's nothing like what they're going to lose. And they're going to lose it quickly. Because their fertility rate's been so low for so long that the number of old people is just going to explode over the next few years, and the population is just going to start dying off, and there's nowhere near enough to replace it. And we're going to see this. We're going to see this in spades. So here's the thing. We have to be ready. That means we can't use standard conservative talking points anymore or policies. We need to make new policies. We can't just look at these people and say, well, what you need is good tax policy. That's not what they need. What Japan's going to need are babies, not tax policy. And so we need to prep ourselves as those outsiders kind of looking in, to put forward a message that people can latch onto that actually match the circumstances today. And conservatives have not been horribly bad about this in America. They haven't automatically been great at it either, right? It's kind of a mixed bag. We'll accept Trump's leadership to build the wall on the border, but maybe not in other areas. Maybe there's a lot of Republicans who don't like the way Trump is handling trade, right? Renegotiating, making new deals, using tariffs in order to get people to the bargaining table. There's a lot about that people don't care for. People don't care for his blustery style. People don't care for his directness and lack of tact sometimes, you could say. I don't think those are killer, but at least he has some new ideas. And at least he's doing a couple of things. And he's trying. And here's the weird thing. It's succeeding. So that should tell us something about our willingness to adapt new ideas and to promote those ideas in public. That if we're offering solid, workable ideas, people are going to give you a chance. And that's what we need. We need people to listen and give us a chance. Okay? That means we need to be prepared. We need to be prepared. We need to look around and start learning our lessons now about what the future is going to be like from videos like this. Because it's important. We've got to be prepared. We've got to be prepared. We're going to get one chance to make our argument and win the argument and win the war. One. We're going to get one. Because 20 years from now, it'll be too late. 20 years from now, the Islamic civilization is going to be way on its way towards dominating and outnumbering and bringing its forces more and more into Europe. As parts of Europe become majority Muslim or close to, they're going to gain sympathizers, they're going to gain resources, they're going to gain access. It's just going to be over in 20 to 30 years. By 2050, there's not going to be any coming back. But we're going to get one chance in the next 10 years. We're going to see the permanence and the destructive power of dedicated Muslim jihadists. And we're going to get to see, close hand and personal, and visible, and on our news, what demographic collapse looks like. What it does to a country, what it does to a people, and what it does to the future. We're going to get to see that. So here's what we need to do first. The first thing we need to do is we need to get our thoughts together. You need to listen to videos like this. You need to listen to Dave Ramsey when he tells you to get out of debt. You need to listen to Stefan Molyneux. You need to listen to Entrepreneurs on Cars. You need to listen to Roland Tomasi. You need to listen to some spiritual advisor, some preacher that you can believe in, who's going to tell you the truth, and at least for the most part, do it in an honest way. Now, true enough, my favorite preacher and teacher right now is T.D. Jakes. He does get off onto some odd and end black communities, liberal stuff. But if you listen to him, and you listen long enough, you'll notice there are lots of times when he sounds pretty close to Jordan Peterson about how we should respond to what we see in the world and to our spiritual nature and to the nature of God. So you have to be ready. You have to be ready. Because when people look at this and they stare down into this abyss and they realize, dang, you know what? This may not lead us where we want to go. Then you're going to have to step up and make the point to them. You're right. It's not going to lead us where we want to go. We're going to throw away all the advantages of our civilization and all the technology it's produced. And we're going to allow people who are far less civilized and far less modernized to take over all of these countries and take over all of these organizations, and they're just going to run it into the ground. Yes, we need to stop that. I'm glad you see it now. You got to be prepared. You got to have your head together, and you've got to be ready to respond, both with an argument and with a lifestyle. You've got to have both. You've got to have an argument and a lifestyle. We've got to be prepared. Because if we will tap into our ability to persuade the American public and the public of other countries around the world who are not going to be able to avoid seeing this, there's no amount of, we don't talk about controversial things in public, that's going to let you hide this. There's no amount of, we're just going to kind of shine this off in order to save face, that's going to allow you to avoid this. We need to be prepared to speak, and we have to go beyond, you need to cut your taxes. We need to say things, we need to live things that are real. Do you hear me? We need to say, to live, to act in a way that is real. This is our shining moment. It's coming. It's coming, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. Get yourself ready. Get yourself prepared. Get your head in the game. Don't sit around and just play Xbox all day. Get your head in the game. Get out. Do things. Talk to people. Get online. Learn. Listen. Adopt. Do you know how civilization will get saved? When you and I take these things and we get them in our heart to where they're a part of us. And that can be a struggle. Yeah, it can be a struggle. I know it's a struggle for me. There are days when I'm just like, rah, 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 rah. I understand. There are days when I look at all the craziness that I read on the internet, and I post it on Facebook, and it's like, look, the world's going crazy. This is insane. This is literally insane. This is batshit crazy. But people are doing it, and they're doing it in public, and they want it to be a part of public policy. This is insane. I understand. I'm there with you. But we still have to prep ourselves as much as humanly possible so we can be ready to step up when the time is right. Because our day is not long coming. I hope you enjoy that. I hope you get something out of it. Please listen and please share. And if you like it, give it a like. I appreciate it greatly. And I will talk to you soon. Make another one of these. Next time, we're going to talk about first steps. And we're going to talk about what's going to be the response that we're going to have when these things come up. So get prepared, gentlemen. Get prepared, ladies. Because it's not far away. I promise you. It's not far away.